Welcome, welcome. Um, I'm excited to have this conversation with you all. If I don't know if you all noticed, but some of these faces you may have seen in videos because all of these people were involved in at least one of these events or more, and they show up in the videos. And let's start with, I'm going to introduce Alisa, and then we're going to do like a round robin of introductions. Okay. So I'll start with Alisa, who is the executive director at a community organization that I met, I think, through our community council when we were, your organization was doing a lot of work in the community and showing up at community council and continues to do a lot of very important advocacy, organizing, and engagement work. So Alisa, do you want to say just a word about Cornerstone? And then actually first, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I'm going to stop there. Rick's going to introduce Pam.
Happily. Pam Kravetz is an arts icon here in Cincinnati and beyond. Her work is an embodiment of her colorful, playful, high positive energy spirit. And she is my absolute favorite artist to collaborate with because she can do what I cannot, which is sort of effortlessly tap into a bottomless well of creative ideas.
Wow.
All true. And then Pam, you get to introduce Rick.
Oh my gosh, Rick, magical unicorn. I love watching Rick work with community. He's a brilliant artist, a mosaic artist. He can do everything. He does logistics. He's the one that makes sure we have enough paint and enough brushes and enough drop cloths. He's the guy that we all go to, and he is my absolute favorite collaborator that I've ever worked with. And I know, Margy, that we're not going to introduce you, but I just want to tell you all on this call, are we introducing you?
No.
We are now. Margy is just magic. She is the rock star. She's the glue. She's the idea. She finds funding. She celebrates us. She honors us. I highly recommend having Margy on every team of anything you ever want to do to make the world a better place. And Rick and I and Alisa have been very lucky to be in her orbit and just honored. And we love you. Sorry, I'm not allowed to talk that long, but how can I not?
Thank you. That was unexpected, and I do appreciate it. Thank you. I am going to start now with Alisa and say, just tell us a little about you, what you're doing in the community, and the work you're doing there.
Thanks, Margie. So I'm with Cornerstone Renter Equity, and Cornerstone is a community partner. We're located in Cincinnati, Ohio. We primarily serve the over the Rhine community. And so a lot of the work we do is around building positive community. And we do that by incentivizing our families to invest in themselves and their community.
So what made you realize that, because you participated in Pleasant Paints or that painting project, and then after that you had, I think you've done two or three more or planned them painting projects since then. So why is that working for you?
So one of the big things about Cornerstone, as I mentioned, is that we are a community-oriented partner. And so we like to partner with the community and really get the community involved. And so the first year that we did this, it was because of you, of course, Margie, who had PaintnSkate present and said, hey, why don't you do your community day with us? And so what we learned in that community day is that while community day is a great activation, the painting was a really great way to bring the community together on something that they could work together, create buy-in and ownership with. And so it made people feel really good after I would see them at that event where we did that one with you. When they came to other events, they would remind me that they were there at that event painting. You don't remember me painting? I painted that over there on Pleasant. So it was just a great way for the community to get involved.
And your goal in doing some of those, you're trying to let people know about what you're doing in the community or about your organization, get more members?
So we do community events as a way to promote the services that we have. So our community events in general are to kind of promote the work that we do at Cornerstone, and also to have our members, the families that we serve, they are the ones who really are coordinating and throwing the events. So they volunteer at the events. They say, hey, we want to do a community exchange table, or we'll do community giving, and we'll get the foods together. And so we kind of support the neighbors in the community. And this is a good way of them creating some ownership. What's that?
Thank you. I'm going to turn to Pam and Rick now and sort of jump into the process that you've used when you're gathering community input, and maybe start with Pam. Tell us a little bit about that and how you translate that.
Okay. It's really important that that this comes from the community, and we honor their interest and their desires and their art and ideas. So we have information sessions, we have opportunities for community to come together and draw if they want to. We understand, like, a lot of people don't want to draw. Some people do. Little kids, heck yeah. Grown-ups, not always. So we give them opportunities to either talk to us and verbalize it, or draw it, or write it, or just share ideas and thoughts. And we collect all of that. Lots and lots of papers, lots of writing down, and all of these things. And then we, as the artist, take those ideas and put them together in the best way that we can to honor their ideas, honor their beliefs, honor their whys. Why are we doing this? What do you want in the skate park? What matters to you? This is yours. And we put all of those kind of ideas together, and we start to collect those ideas and put them into a beginning drawing sketch idea. Did that answer that question?
I want to maybe ask Rick to tell us specifically about PaintnSkate. How did that look? How did that happen with PaintnSkate? Because I know you did the engagement work on that project.
Sure. Yeah, we utilized an event that they already had going. So they have that organization that uses the rink and manages the rink, has an annual event where all of their shareholders, people who participate or who are on the board, all come out. So it was about 60 people who were present. And this was sort of perfect because we knew that US at 250 was the theme, or that was what was holding it together. So these ideas are already dovetailed perfectly. We already make people in charge of the murals we paint in their communities. So the idea that we were talking to them about being in charge and what that meant to them at that rink was sort of an automatic, a perfect fit.
And what did they tell you about roller skating and people being in charge?
Yeah, they told us so much. There was a lot of pride that came out. We learned a lot about that specific organization. There was a lot about, I learned sort of some of the layers of why this was important to people in this community, and it was so much beyond roller skating. This was like a way to help people. It was a way to help neighbors. It was a way to do things together, and we were thoroughly inspired by that and their drawings, and took all that back to Pam and let her work her magic.
Okay. Pam, tell us about the magic that you built in based on that input.
So we find the right people to work with, and sometimes they find us, and it's just so amazingly all over the place as far as that goes. So we had an artist that was a roller skater, and he's also a designer, and he helped talk us through some of the things and the ideas that the community came up with. It's like, you have to have those center pieces that they can practice the figure eights. We really wanted to work with the roller derby. We have an incredible roller derby group here, and we wanted to give them an opportunity to actually have bouts outside at at our arena. We also wanted to have skating rings for people to learn and do all those parts. They also talked to us about the different styles of skating, and Rick knows more about that because he's a skater as well, which was really helpful.
That's handy, yeah.
Oh my gosh, you saw him on skating in the video. You saw me too. But they also, when we go back to this idea that who's in charge, who is this? And we are the kings and queens of our world, and Cincinnati is the Queen City, and it came really naturally along this thought process that we had to have crowns there. But the crowns belong to the skaters, because the skaters are the ones that rule the rink and rule their own lives. And so the crowns were super important. We really wanted to have the skates there, obviously. We had to have the space that was big enough for the roller derby and good for learning. And the vibrancy, we wanted to add colors that were already part of this skate downtown Cincinnati to kind of honor the history. Super important that it just like blew people's minds as far as the color, the pattern, the accessibility, all of that. And those were things that were important to the community when Rick had the meeting. And it was important to the person that has been really championing this roller rink and bringing it back to life. And we wanted to draw attention to this amazing third space, community, safe space for people in our city. So all of those parts kind of came together. And it's not easy.
No, I mean, I think it turned out to be a lot more work than Pam and Rick expected it to be when we first started talking about this.
Always. But it's great when you have the right team.
Yeah, it is great when you have the right team. So let's talk about that. Alisa, I know you had one experience with an artist who really wasn't so into the community engagement idea. Can you say a few words about what happened there?
Yeah. So we had one artist where, community input is a really big thing for us. And so it helps them buy in. And so we asked him to come to a community input meeting, and he said he couldn't come. And so he sent a drawing to the community meeting. And then when we got to the community meeting, I kind of presented it to our families. It was a bit of an abstract drawing, so they couldn't quite get the concept of it. And so they had lots of feedback that they really wanted him to incorporate into his painting and what they wanted in his mural. And when I went back to him, he just simply walked away. And so I get it. Artists are kind of sensitive sometimes, this is their creation. But for us, it's really important for the community to feel like they're a part of it. And so what we have found, just another quick example, is that we had somebody else come and do a mural, and we didn't get the feedback that we should have, and they messed the mural up because they didn't like the eyes or something on the face, and that was like a real big thing in the community. So then we had to go back and kind of adjust that. So it's just really important that our community has some feedback, because if they don't, they don't feel a part of it. And so now the lady's like, oh, see, you see that? That's me. That's my store, because a piece of her, she does Hood Foods, she sells foods, and it's on the mural. And so it helped her feel like she's a part of it.
For sure. So Pam and Rick, maybe say a few words about how should people think about finding artists who do like to do this kind of work, who are really into community work.
I'll start, and then Rick, you want to grab, just because I am a retired high school art teacher. I taught for 30 years, and Rick and I have both found that working with art educators is really helpful, because art educators and artists as well, but being able to work with community and be okay with people not doing exactly what you had in mind and actually listening to and honoring the community is really important. And the ownership has to be with the community, and we as the artists and the people managing and facilitating, we have to be able to honor that. You're going to work with people who've never picked up a paintbrush in their life. You're going to be working with 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, and you have to be able to pivot and work. And I know I've seen Rick change like an entire thing because someone dropped some paint, and he's like, that's okay. We're going to turn that, that carrot into a cucumber, because of where the paint fell. So we find that that's really, really important, and a wonderful way also to get art teachers some extra gig work in the summertime. And then Rick, do you want to jump in on the other ways that we have found artists as well?
Sure. Yeah. And I do want to reinforce that. I think going to art educators is the perfect way to start. I think that, Pam and I shatter that any kind of stereotype that exists of artists as sort of shut in recluses that are driven only by their own vision. There are many, many artists out there, many types of artists. Art educators is a great place to start. But then every city has great arts organizations that I think are very easy and eager even to partner with people or to take those calls, to be connected with artists who might be, eager to be flexible, to work with the community, to collaborate, as opposed to artists who might be more inclined to just, only fulfill their own visions.
And I'll just add, I think you guys have, you've cultivated a whole crew of people now. So like you've made a point of bringing in other, especially younger artists, so that, they learn how to do this and they work with you. And then the next time Alisa can hire one of them. in her work.
Right,
Lisa,
right.
I'd love to talk about paying artists. I'm not sure we're going to have time to get to how you decide how much to pay, but I do want to ask Alisa, how have you funded this work? Because your organization, you're focused on community building and housing and your community, but how do you pay for it? How do you think about that?
So we have a lot of events that we throw. So we do a community day, we do a block party, and we figure this into that budget. And so as we are looking for sponsors, then as we're creating that budget, that's one of the things that we're creating. How much is it going to cost for the artist? How much does the paint cost? If we can borrow paint from somebody else and use their extra paint. But like we look at it as a part of the event that we're throwing. And and so we've gotten through neighborhood community funds, through safe and clean money through the city. We're able to use those different ways to get funding.
And I'll just
none of it has been through arts funding, which is because I'm silly and didn't think about
it. That's all right. You did it the right way. I will just add that I asked these guys about how you figure out how much to pay artists, and I didn't get real good answers when we were meeting beforehand. But my own practice has been basically to ask the artists, to try to think about what they think they should be paid. They're not necessarily great at being their own advocates, but we do have to pay them, and we do have to find ways to make sure that we're paying enough. And I would like to pay them what they ask for, somebody said. That's the ideal, absolutely. And I think I have always met that goal, and maybe they haven't told me enough, but we've tried to do that. So I can stop here, and maybe Sabina or Elaine, if there are any questions in the chat or comments that you think we should bring attention to before we close.
Yeah, well, you all have covered most of the ground that people raised, but I will flag a couple of things that came up, like particularly early in the chat. Somebody, I think I mentioned this, Marty, there was a question about, what are, maybe at this point it's better for examples than something exhaustive, but a couple of powerful examples of how you've done evaluation on this, or what you did for sort of proof of engagement, proof of effectiveness, sort of after the fact, that really helped you then kind of further demonstrate the importance of this. And somebody also a question about this sort of the intersection of medium and message, and is sometimes the medium more important than the message? Obviously, we're here to talk about how working with creatives and these art projects can bring narrative to life. And this 250 example, I think, was so great, the way Rick described how the medium and the way people participate actually demonstrated the narrative, right? It was actually about people taking collective action to, about empowerment. So any thoughts on those last two questions? And then I think, we'll just wrap up.
I'll just start by saying, I think on that last point you made, Elaine, that's right on. Like, the illustration of the effectiveness is in the documentation itself. You can actually see it. And then especially if, as in this case, with PaintnSkate, and we will share this in a resource that we'll share out afterward, all of the media coverage that we got, which you can actually see now if you go to the Art on the Streets website. There's a whole page on this event. It was remarkable, first of all, how much attention it got, and how well they just fed right back to their audience the message. So I think that's what you're looking for. It's nice to have goals about participation, just how many people actually participate, but because you're documenting with video and pictures, you get to see a lot more beyond the, say, 150 or more people who show up, or 900 people who show up for a bike ride. Other thoughts, anybody?
That's great.
On medium versus message, that's an interesting question that I've not thought about before, but I would say the message is the most important thing. That's what you're trying to communicate. Even if it's simply as important as art is valuable in communities, and art creates fun, and art connects people. That's a message in itself for the arts community, and that oftentimes these kinds of events are dramatically different in illustrating the importance of funding the arts in a place that goes beyond events that you might have to pay to get into, or show up because you love ballet or you love opera. This is the kind of thing that people who don't think of themselves as as loving the arts will show up for, because it's so much fun.
Mhm.
So it's a way of communicating that.
And Margy,
I think it's also a way.
right. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Alisa.
Oh, just a quick, what you're saying is also a way of introducing some things to people where they may have not been introduced or even thought about this skill as something that could be relaxing or calming or healing. And we don't realize that until they're in the middle of it and they've spent all day just on the ground painting. And then they're like, oh, I feel so good. It's like, yeah. So it's almost this community also like way of dealing with some of the trauma we deal with in communities, right? Just learning a new way to heal.
That's awesome. Pam?
Yeah,
I'll
thank
just
you.
throw in, often I'm asked what kind of medium I use as an artist. And I say I'm a storyteller, and the story I tell dictates the medium I use. So when we are, when we wanted to do a roller rink, of course we're going to paint the actual roller rink. It's like, then that's the story, that's the medium. When we were doing things to help people vote and we wanted to be able to hand them out, the story is getting that message to people. We use a coloring book page. So everything, the story, the narrative is what feeds the medium. And so anyway, I just kind of wanted to add that.
That's terrific. And I'll close us out, I guess, by saying that's why bringing artists into your project from the beginning, you may just have an idea of something, and a story you want to share, a narrative you want the public to pick up on or know about. Bring the artist to the table and let them help brainstorm with you about how to do it and what the event should look like, what the experience should look like. That is a real value that the artist can bring to community work and advocacy work, engaging the community and doing education, etc. Elaine, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you. Oh, it's kind of killing me to cut this off, to be honest.